It began with a letter, a small sheet of paper folded into the mail, a symbol like a clock face with a cross through it, and a voice that said, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." On the foggy roads around the San Francisco Bay, that voice turned everyday nights into a contest. Who would notice first? Who could solve the code? Who would name the man behind the mask? Tonight, we walk that line between puzzle and panic. This is the Zodiac. Chapter 1. First Night. First Whisper. December 1968. Two young people park by a quiet stretch of road, thinking the dark will be private. The night makes ordinary things feel safe. Cars warm, radios playing. The world beyond is a blur. Then violence happens quickly, without warning. What started as a small local story became the first knot in a rope that would stretch across counties, years, and headlines. What we remember is not only the crimes themselves, but the way a public conversation began. Reporters asking questions, neighbors trading rumors, and a city noticing that randomness had a pattern. Chapter 2. The Letters That Became the Crime. A killer who mailed letters changed the rules. He didn't hide in silence. He spoke into the newspapers, demanding to be heard. The letters were taunts and threats, and in between he left puzzles, ciphers constructed like locked doors. The public read the paper, then read the papers again, hunting for a clue. Editors found themselves negotiating with an anonymous antagonist. Print this, and he promises to stop. Ignore him, and he will escalate. That bargain, whether real or imagined, kept the city on edge and turned routine journalism into a kind of battleground. Chapter 3. Codes, Ciphers, and the Hunger to Decode. Some of the Zodiac's cryptograms were solved. Some resist solution even now. Those patterns are a siren. They pull in mathematicians, hobbyists, bored commuters with a taste for puzzles. Each cracked line feels like progress. Each unsolved symbol feels like a dare. The ciphers are more than curiosities. They promise access to the mind that wanted both to kill and to be known. For many viewers, the thrill is intellectual. To stare at a circle of letters and imagine arranging them into a confession. Chapter 4. Faces. We almost had two victims survived attacks and gave the world something to hold. Partial descriptions, gestures remembered in flashes, a glimpse of a man who became, for most people, a myth. That testimony provided threads investigators clung to. Car models, clothing details, a cigarette smell. And in the absence of a face, those threads multiplied into suspects. Over decades, the list of men who met suspicion is long. Neighbors, co-workers, lovers, and loners, who all stepped into the light of accusation for a moment. The truth remained slippery because rumor and real evidence braided together. Chapter 5. A cast of suspects and the problem of certainty. Naming a suspect feels like bringing a story to rest, but real life resists tidy endings. A charismatic theory will dominate headlines for a week. Then a new claim arrives and the old one fades. The case around Arthur Lee Allen is the closest many names have come to staying. Circumstantial links, changed testimonies, and a personality that fit the public image. Yet law enforcement never closed the file. That ambivalence fuels obsession. The public keeps trying to create closure out of fragments, and every new voice on the case becomes a line in a long chorus of interpretation. Chapter 6. The People Under the Headline. This story is not only about a nameless villain and the riddle he left. It's about the people who lost loved ones, who woke up to a world that felt less safe, and who lived with questions that never softened. Families held funerals. Survivors learned to carry what happened forward without letting it define the rest of their life. Good storytelling refuses to reduce those lives to mere plot points. The way we tell the story matters. Choosing respect over sensationalism changes the narrative from exploitation into remembrance. Chapter 7. How Culture Keeps a Killer. A live Zodiac exists partly because culture wants him to. Books, movies, podcasts, and YouTube channels keep the case in circulation. Each retelling adds a layer, dramatization, artistic license, fresh interviews, or a new forensic test. Social media accelerates this process. An obscure document goes viral, a theory attracts millions of comments, and amateur detectives form online coalitions that cast light and shadow at once. The case evolves as our tools and tastes change. The killer is fixed in time, but our ways of approaching him are not. Chapter 8. Forensics, technology, and the promise of a name. For decades, the only tools were fingerprints, witness statements, and shoe prints. Today, DNA technology and databases rewrite what cold case means. Tiny traces on envelopes, faint cells trapped in envelopes or on stamps, in patterns and digital footprints can be the threads that tie a ghost to a name. But science is not a magic wand. Contamination, false leads, and human error complicate everything. Still, each decade brings a stronger chance that something once invisible could become visible. A single match, a re-examined sample, a piece of handwriting analyzed with new algorithms. The possibility keeps the file alive. Chapter 9. The line between investigating and hunting. There is an ethical tension in public sleuthing. When amateurs dig, they can uncover overlooked facts, but they can also amplify misinformation, harass suspects, and reopen wounds for families. Responsible curiosity respects boundaries. It helps police when it produces solid leads, and it stops when it only produces noise. The best creators treat this case as a call to careful inquiry, not as clickable spectacle. Chapter 10. The Psychology of the Signature. Why sign a crime? Why send a cipher? For the Zodiac, the signature was both shield and spotlight. Anonymity let him act without accountability. The letters let him claim ownership. He altered the scale of fear by choosing public channels. He didn't need to be present for his terror to travel. Understanding that psychology helps explain why the case endures. It is a portrait not merely of crimes, but of a person who weaponized attention itself. Chapter 11. What we still don't know and why it matters. We still lack the crucial piece, a confirmed identity. That absence is not a neat ending. It is a wound in the cultural memory that draws lines around how we think about safety, about the power of words, and about what it means to live in a place where randomness becomes ritual. Solving Zodiac would bring closure to some, but it would also force society to reckon with our own appetite for spectacle, the ways we amplify the very thing we fear. Chapter 12. A Quiet Close. That questions more than it answers. The Zodiac case resists easy conclusions. It asks us to sit with discomfort, the knowledge that someone once turned murder into a game and that we are still trying to finish the board. If you stay with this story to the end, let your curiosity be constructive. Demand accuracy, honor the victims, and understand that the hunger to know can be useful or destructive, depending on how it is fed. Maybe one day a name will arrive, maybe not. Either way, the search tells us as much about ourselves as it does about the man who called himself Zodiac. We keep turning pages because some questions live longer than answers. This was one of them. If you want more, subscribe for a deep dive series. Next episode, the letters decoded line by line and what they can and cannot tell us.